Hello and welcome to this Sunday Independent Ireland Thinks poll special where, much like the recent by-elections, it's good news for Fine Gael and the Social Democrats and bad news for Sinn Féin and Fianna Fáil. Joining me now to go through all of those results and more is pollster with Ireland Thinks Kevin Cunningham. Kevin, thanks very much. Let's just dive in, I suppose, to the party standings. I mean, Sinn Féin down 2 to 20, Fine Gael up 2 to 19. Fianna Fáil down 1 to 16. Social Democrats up 3 to 12. And that's about a 6-point jump in about 2 months. They had a previous record a month or two ago. They're going up again. Not a huge amount of change for the smaller parties. And really Labour, nowhere at the races.
Yeah, Labour down 1. And so Social Democrats clearly taking some from Sinn Féin, some from Labour, probably some from undecideds. They seem to get a bit of momentum coming into Christmas. And they've surfed that into these by-elections. The by-elections, I think this figure is probably stronger than the by-election figures themselves. So the by-elections, they were up 5 or 6% relative to the previous general election. This is stronger again. It's probably this idea of momentum where a party does relatively well and it just builds and builds on top of that.
And people buy into the brand as well and the message.
And Holly Cairns is, again, as we've had for a number of months, the most popular political leader in Ireland.
Yeah.
She's up 2 to 41. There's a gap between her and the next most popular, Micheál Martin, and followed by Simon Harris. What's interesting is Mary MacDonald is down to 31, and I think that's quite interesting.
Has been going down and down, really, for a few months now. And it ties into this wider question of the Sinn Féin leadership. I mean, it's something that she has obviously emphatically ruled out, that there's no questions around the leadership. And as she points to, perhaps unusual for a political party, that, the leader is voted on every year at the Ardèche, and she's trotted this line out. But it still lingers that she failed to get a candidate over the line in her own backyard. And there is a question that you've asked as well around who people would like to see as the next leader Sinn Féin. You might just talk us through that. Perhaps not surprised, but a significant gap at the top.
Yeah, Pearse Doherty miles ahead, 38% indicating that. I mean, so bear in mind, 30% said no interest, 7% said none of these. But Pearse Doherty is a good bit ahead, 38%, followed by Eoin O'Brien, 8%, Michelle O'Neill, 6%, Matt Carthy, 4%, and then a number of others, Louise Riley, David Cullinan, Mairead Farrell. There's a clear alternative, I guess, for Sinn Féin, which I think is perhaps if people do consolidate around, if Pearse Doherty kind of looks for it, then that perhaps might create a more interesting dynamic. But I guess for the most part, Sinn Féin does look, in terms of their polling, they are still the most popular party in Ireland.
But by only by 1 point in this month's poll, I would say. I mean, it's not a huge gap at the top by any means. But you're right, they are still the most popular. And what I think was a really interesting question this month, given we've had all this talk of a left-wing alliance that Holly Cairns recently in an interview at Sunday Independent kind of ruled out ahead of the next general election. Yeah. But there's 2 questions. Would you vote for left-wing alliance? And I think more telling, perhaps, in your view, is Sinn Féin a left-wing party?
Yeah, so 46% indicate that they believe Sinn Féin is a left-wing party, 34% say no. That obviously depends on your perspective. It'd be interesting to cross-tabulate that against party vote choice, particularly the Sinn Féin supporters. But the left-wing alliance thing is quite interesting. So just 28% indicate that they would vote for a, inverted commas, left-wing alliance. 51% indicate that they would not. I think this question is quite interesting because it highlights that distinction between, let's say, you look at the Catherine Connolly vote, you look at the combined support for centre-left and left-wing parties, if we include Sinn Féin, and it would give you a sense that there's a very strong, almost majority for left-wing politics, but that isn't the case. There's a lot of people who aren't necessarily ideologically left-wing or ideologically right-wing either, who would identify or support these political parties.
But it touches probably a little bit on the kind of splinter maybe within Sinn Féin, for instance, in itself, with its more right-leaning nationalistic part and with more left-leaning parts, kind of the likes of Eoin O'Brien and Lynn Boylan. And I think when people hear left-wing alliance, because when it's spoken about, Sinn Féin, obviously being the main opposition party, are lumped in with that.
Yeah.
So people maybe... Is there an element within these figures, you think, that the 51%, more than half of voters who said they wouldn't vote for left-wing alliance, is because of the Sinn Féin effect?
That's interesting because there is a whole thing around Sinn Féin as a party in terms of whether you'd vote for a party or not. There's a kind of a toxicity around the party that's always been there. Now it is softened over the years, but there is a subset of the electorate, particularly Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael supporters, that would never vote for something that is associated with Sinn Féin. But yeah, I think the interesting thing is because it's 28%, right?
Yeah.
And there is talk of this kind of left-wing majority, that doesn't really bear out in the data. And that's because, as I said, a lot of voters don't necessarily think of themselves in those ideological terms. They may agree with left-wing policies, but they don't necessarily agree with, having that kind of whole left-wing view. And that's why I think that, in some respect, the kind of purity test aspect to who is and who isn't left-wing may not exactly be the most productive. I mean, I think Ivana Bacik's figure is down in this month, and Labour is down here as well. So,
I mean, ultimately, really, if any of the parties is the left, maybe exclude Sinn Féin for a minute. I mean, if Labour, the Social Democrats, for instance, and maybe the Greens, smattering Independents, went into government next time with either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, they'd ultimately have to coalesce around some broadly centrist platform. That is ultimately what would have to happen to make it work.
Yeah.
So what I mean is there's a kind of a malleableness there on all parties, I'd say, at the moment, and we're 3 years out, bear in mind, from a general election. Yeah. Just touch a little bit as well, sticking with kind of more pure political angles in some of this. I mean, the government they probably won't be pleased enough with this poll. I mean, you Fianna Fáil are down 1 and Micheál Martin's gone up 2, but if you just look at the major issues, I thought were quite interesting because cost of living, which has kind of gone up and up and up, and look, this is, obviously there's peaks and troughs when there's a crisis, and the government responded through the fuel protest, but it's gone down 10 points to 45. Yeah. And housing's now back up to 49. Interestingly, immigration has shot back up 27. It's on 20 now. It's not on the same level. We've the EU Asylum Migration Pact coming in next week. There seems to be some concern, and independent TDs raising this. Their constituents are raising. Are we to read anything from these kind of major priorities or issues affecting the public?
I think you're right. I think it is interesting coming into that. So immigration is up 7 points from 20 to 27, you're right, as well. The other thing that is also up significantly is crime and drugs, or drugs and crime as an issue. And I think those two things are related. So that's gone from 5 to 10. So combining those two, I think there's going to be a lot of overlap. And I think that it is a function of some of the stories in recent weeks around murders in particular, which will raise the salience of these particular issues, especially where there might be non-nationals connected to in some way. And so I think it feeds into a certain rhetoric that people are kind of looking towards. That immigration issue, it does kind of spike when it comes to the event and doesn't seem to suppress. So it's not surprising that it just lifts up to 27. It could easily, as you say, with this debate next week, rise even further, I guess.
Well, just a nice segue into immigration and crime is, I suppose, Justice Minister Jim O'Callaghan, and you've asked some very interesting questions to set this month, which is, who do you think has performed best in the past year and a half in office, and then who do you think has performed worse the past year and a half in office? Please just take us through them, because they're really interesting findings.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. So 32% indicate they don't know, and some of the comments in the survey, people were like indicating that they would prefer to give a none of the above sort of answer.
Yeah, sure.
Was the case. But forcing people a little bit to select one of these people, Jim O'Callaghan is quite considerably ahead of almost anyone. He was on 22, followed by Jennifer Carroll McNeill on 11, and then Helen McEntee was the third largest on 6, and then it's like 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So
not at the races.
There isn't really much thereafter. So it's interesting that you've got Jim O'Callaghan and Jennifer Carroll McNeill at the top two. Obviously, the most obvious leadership rivals for the two leaders. So it's reflected in public opinion that these people are performing relatively well. There is the who performed worst question. Now, Jennifer Carroll McNeill and Jim O'Callaghan are third and fourth in that, which reflects the fact that, when you're out there, when you're doing things, you're going to annoy.
Well, I think as well, there's probably always a historical element that the Justice Ministry and the Health Ministry are two of those that people laser in on. And no different to poor James Brown at the top of that list.
Yeah, well, James Brown doesn't necessarily get much positively, but he certainly does get negatively. So James Brown and Helen McEntee equally on 15%, and the two that people perceive to have performed worse. Helen McEntee is interesting in some respect because polls Helen McEntee's support a number of times over the years, particularly with the Dublin riots.
Yes.
She has, perhaps surprisingly, always polarised people for whatever reason. There is a cohort of the public who explicitly do not like her, and there are large groups of people who do seem to like her when it comes to some of these issues. So there's a very interesting a demographic aspect to this in terms of gender and rural-urban divide in relation to her popularity, which has kind of been quite consistent over time.
But someone like Darragh O'Brien will be disappointed with these findings. Now, he has said, what leadership question, what ambitions, what are you talking about? But he's been very front and centre in terms of the energy and measures he wants to roll out. And again, you're not really making much of a dent.
Darragh O'Brien's quite interesting. And I defer to you in relation to this, Conal, because whenever you speak to anyone involved in politics, they always talk about him being quite popular and charismatic. That's not necessarily reflected in public opinion. Perhaps people don't know him as well as.
Yeah, I think there might be an element as well. He's always going to be associated with housing in the public's mind.
Yeah.
Is there an argument it got that much better during his term? There was progress made, not as much as maybe should be, and maybe some say with the measures that this new coalition has brought in, will probably are perhaps more radical. And then I think the housing targets debacle has probably stuck to him a little bit. Where
that's what I would have thought. Yeah,
people kind of just go, "Can we really believe you?" But let's just move on from the individuals, not to make it too personalised. But talk to me a little bit at some of these topical, I suppose, questions you've asked, because we're coming into, as I said, so there's a couple of things, moving parts at the moment. One, obviously, I mentioned the EU asylum migration pact kicking in late next week. We also have then Russia and Ukraine, and of course Israel, right? So we had the government moving ahead with the Occupied Territories Bill.
Yeah.
The triple lock will be coming now in the next couple of weeks. The Israel matches, I should say.
Yeah.
Republic of Ireland playing them, and then the Orgonish alumina issue as well.
Yeah, they all obviously tie into the same sort of dynamic, really. It's kind of national interest and what is national interest in the international arena. So starting with the occupied territories, the distinction here is, do you include or not include services within this and the potential financial implications for the country on that basis? We asked people where their position was. So 49% indicated that they supported the bill, but that it should also include services. Yeah. That's the most popular position. So the public in relation to this issue, the largest group of people, it's half the public, but it is the largest group, tend to be taking a stronger position relative to the government on this particular issue. I support the bill as it stands, 16 points. That brings you up to 65, so 2/3. I oppose the bill only because I'm only worried about the possible repercussions for Ireland. That's another 20%. So generally speaking, overwhelmingly people support the bill. There's cohorts of people who support the goods component only, people who oppose it because of the financial implications.
Yeah.
And then just 8% indicate they oppose it for another reason, and 7% don't know.
There's a nuance in all of this, because it's quite a complicated issue, right? Goods versus services. And you'd wonder, based on the nearly, basically half people saying I support the bill, but I think it should include services, has the government done a good enough job in explaining what the impact of that would be? It would appear not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The issue is when you ask a poll like this, some people would often argue, well, maybe we should give more context to people so that they can make a thorough judgment. But then it gets complicated, like what context do you give people? Its context itself is a conflicted issue. Like I could give one context or another, and it's going to influence the outcome. In some respect, you're absolutely spot on. You ask the question, and in this case, one could argue that the government hasn't necessarily given people the sufficient information to get them over to their side, or maybe that won't ever happen. But it is almost in some sense, sometimes these questions are a test of the communication of the government itself.
And I mean, one of the most interesting and perhaps the most topical one in these kind of broad sweep of topical questions you've asked is just in relation to those matches in the Aviva in September and October, because we know as well heading into next week, Sinn Féin and the Social Democrats both tabled a motion in the Dáil for the government to effectively intervene and ban them. Now the government, for context, has said that's absolutely not going to happen, and it's pointing to the RT and the Eurovision as you know, we're not getting involved in this. It's not our job. It's a matter for UEFA and it's a matter for the FAI.
Yeah.
But half of people don't want them to go ahead.
Yeah, so there's 50% indicated should not go ahead, and then 3 different categories. 12% say it should go ahead but be played elsewhere. 13%, it should go ahead but played in behind closed doors, and then 21%, it should go ahead as normal. So there's I don't know how plausible those secondary options are in terms of the game being played behind closed doors or elsewhere are. But that certainly seems to be a middling position. Broadly speaking, though, it is actually quite divisive. If you add up all those categories between people that think it should or shouldn't go ahead, it's roughly 50% in favour of going ahead and 45% that it shouldn't, and then 5% don't know. But there's broader questions here in relation to, you know, what Ireland should do or shouldn't do in relation to all these sorts of issues. And I did ask one question about taking a tougher stand on countries breaching international law, just to kind of tie all these sorts of bits and pieces together. And 39% favour the idea of a principle-based approach. 25% saying Ireland's interests should come first. And 35%, it depends on the kind of country or issue, I guess. So
Yeah, sure.
bit of a...
Less hardline people in there as well, really. I mean,
Yeah.
But I mean, still 40% say principles should come first, but that's an easy thing to say, right?
Well, it depends on how you're viewing these issues. Is it a principle-based thing? Is this how you're responding to this?
Sure.
And that might, you know, what was the
Question of how informed
I have
people are is
principles,
always,
but you know.
No, I understand. You're right.
But the other one is the triple lock.
Yeah.
Said.
Yeah.
That's extremely divisive.
Yep.
44% do not want to change the triple lock. Now, we asked the most kind of favourable question in relation to this. So we say exactly what it is. It's like a Dáil vote, UN Security Council approval,
Yes.
and the government in order to send over 12 troops. We explain exactly who has vetoes. Obviously, the kind of the US, Russia, China, the UK, and France. I would say none of which are popular, well, perhaps France at this point. And it's now 44% no and 43% yes. So that has actually come down, that no figure.
Right, okay.
So it used to be much stronger opposition to the triple, changing the triple lock. Now it's still quite divisive, but I would bet that the no side in this case is perhaps more motivated in this respect. Yeah. It's probably quite a strong no.
Great. Talk to me just finally, Kevin, about a few maybe things to give the government food for thought in the budget and around housing. It seems that 39% of people think the housing crisis has become much worse since the current government took office. But it seems people are overwhelmingly in favour of rural home changes, which will allow people to build one-off homes, which will affect in the summer. Yeah.
The one-off homes is interesting. We did a poll before, which actually... I assume influenced government policy in some respect, because it showed that the relative popularity of the what was also termed the beds and
beds and sheds.
Beds and sheds.
Yes, don't call them that to me, Hal Martin.
But anyway, that was very popular.
Yeah,
and government have proceeded with that. This is also very popular. I mean, I think it reflects the fact that when it comes to housing, again, reflecting this whole thing about ideology not being as central to how people are perceiving this.
Just want solutions.
They just want answers, solutions. That perhaps reflects, you know, those two ministers are also relatively quite popular, because I would assume there's a perception that those are more kind of active in some respect.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. For all those fascinating results and more, see Sunday Independent or read the Irish Independent online.